everyone, and welcome to another episode of Unclouded Eye, Planetary Potion. Ash here to talk with you about the transits happening from April 7th through April 20th. And we'll be counting down from the least active rather, to the most active planet. And it's not as eventful a 2-week period as last time. So that's kind of nice. We get a little bit of a breather, but there are still some interesting things happening. I don't think this is going to be quite as long an episode as last time, though. And yeah, let's just jump right on into it. And let's start with the number 10, the least active planet during this time. All right. So this is almost becoming a little bit of a joke because this planet is at the bottom for the third week running, and that is Jupiter. So Jupiter is number 10 for us this week, and it has literally no transits happening this week. It is in the later degrees of Gemini. Jupiter will be moving into Cancer later in the year, and we're definitely going to have some Jupiter heavy weeks approaching, but not right now, and not really for most of April and early May either. So Jupiter is going to have a quiet time. And, when Jupiter is more active, it tends to be a lot of like big movements, a lot of extravagance, more of a desire to spend a lot of money, be a little bit looser and freer and more adventurous. And that's kind of all a little on the lower side lately. So, yeah, a lot more serious transits happening and less of that fun Jupiter energy. Now, of course, we all have our own individual transits. So some of you may be going through your own Jupiter transit, so you'll get a taste of Jupiter in your own life. But as far as the skies overhead, Jupiter is not really interacting with any current planets right now. So let's move on to number 9. At number 9, we have Pluto. So Pluto only has one transit happening, and this is occurring on April 20th. So that's the last day that we're actually looking at in this 2-week period. But this is a pretty significant transit. It's enough that it would land Pluto on the list, and Pluto is going to be sextiling Mercury on this day. And this is really only going to be felt on April 20th. Mercury transits really only last for about a day. So this is really significant on that day. And that's a Sunday the 20th, which is actually Easter. This transit perfects at 5:39 p.m. Eastern Time, and it will see Mercury at 3 degrees Aries and Pluto at 3 degrees Aquarius. And this is actually the third time we've experienced this transit in the last month and a half, because Mercury did sextile Pluto back on March 5th, and then it stationed retrograde and it moved back and sextiled Pluto again, and that was on March 25th, and then the retrograde ended, and now it is retracing its steps, coming back around to sextile it one final time during this cycle anyway. So Mercury sextile Pluto is really going to be prominent on the 20th and the 20th only. And this is a really good transit for looking below the surface, researching things, seeing stuff for what it really is. So this is kind of a detective's aspect. It allows us to dig deep and to really feel the intention behind things. Pluto is the planet that governs kind of the underworld, the shadows, and the unknown, where Mercury can govern our minds and our communication. So those are working in harmony with the sextile, so we're able to use our minds to uncover hidden information and to kind of get to the bottom of things. So this is great for solving problems and being observant, detecting things that might go unsaid or unnoticed by many. And so our perception levels are a lot higher on this day. And that is why Pluto is number 9. That's the only major Pluto transit during this period, but still pretty significant. All right, let's get to number 8. Coming in at number 8, we have Saturn. So Saturn only has one major transit happening during this time as well, but it is a conjunction, and so I'm bumping it up above Pluto for this just because conjunctions are more potent than sextiles, just generally speaking. Conjunction is when two planets are together in the sky. They're in the exact same point, the exact same degree of the exact same sign. So they tend to be very strong when they are activated together. So this is happening on April 7th. So very much at the beginning of the 2-week period we're looking at. April 7th is a Monday, and we have Saturn conjuncting Venus. And this is happening at 7:01 a.m. Eastern Time, with both of the planets at 25 degrees of Pisces. And keep in mind, Venus is retrograde still during this point, and it has moved back into place with Saturn. So we did have this conjunction not too long ago, not too far back. It was actually on January 18th. So a few months ago, we did have this conjunction. And Venus's retrograde does last longer than Mercury's, which is why it took it that long to kind of move back into place with Saturn. And we will have it one more time pretty soon as well. And that'll be happening on the 24th. So we'll talk about it a little more in next episode. But Venus conjunct Saturn is really great for commitment and for being responsible for others. Now, with Venus being retrograde and this being in Pisces, we might feel as though we have kind of heavy burdens from the past. We could feel like we're responsible for somebody that maybe we've moved beyond. We could feel some level of guilt around a relationship or around a friendship that maybe drifted apart. We could feel like we're responsible for somebody else's happiness. This could be a good thing, but it could also be a bad thing just because of the retrograde effect and this idea of like something from the past that's kind of still lingering and feels maybe like you need to sort of find closure within it or to wrap it up in some way. And this could have some level of confusion just because Pisces in this place, especially with Saturn there, can feel a little confusing. It can feel as though we're a little unsure of what our role could be in this connection with the other person. So I'm trying to think of an example for this. I guess what I would say is like maybe you had a disagreement with a friend and you maybe haven't talked to them in a few months, but you still feel guilty. You might still be replaying the event, or you could see that they have been having a rough time. Maybe you feel bad because you haven't been there for them, and maybe you haven't really wanted to be, though. And there's just this need to either reach out and kind of get it over with and get through the awkwardness and kind of repair the friendship, or to just let go of it and release the guilt and understand that you're both kind of moving your separate ways. And that could look like maybe either apologizing and then moving on, or just not, just letting it be, but giving up on that energy and holding on to that. So ultimately, this is a potent transit, but we're going to have it one more time and we'll talk about it more then. But there is this idea of commitment within relationships, and we might be having to kind of move back through the layers of that toward like past relationships and thinking about how we showed up in our past relationships versus how we want to show up now. Okay, so let's move on to number 7. At number 7, we have the moon. Now, the moon is going to be full during this cycle. On Saturday, April 12th, we will have a full moon in Libra. And this is perfecting at 8:22 p.m. Eastern Time. And we will have the sun at 23 degrees of Aries and the moon at 23 degrees of Libra. So anytime we have a full moon, the planets are in opposition. The sun, or planetary bodies, we would call them, I guess, luminaries. The sun and moon are on opposite sides of the sky, and that is what gives us the full moon appearance, with the sun shining directly onto the moon and illuminating it for us to see here on Earth. So the full moon in Libra is a very social full moon, and we're really going to be feeling this on Saturday. This is the first full moon after last month's eclipse season, so it's not quite as intense as those moons, the new moon and the full moon that we had in March, but it does still feel big and powerful and very social. So the feeling of Aries season is very independent. It's all about kind of following our own instincts and trying to not worry so much about what other people think of us, carving our own path, and really diving into that fiery spirit of Aries. But the full moon in Libra, which happens every Aries season, is much more social. It's much more based around relationships, partnerships, working together with other people. So this is a great day to be around friends, to go out on a date, or to maybe meet new people. If you are single, it's a good day to maybe meet someone or to make some new friendships or networking connections even. And this is also a good day for artistic projects, for shopping, or for anything that kind of gets into that Libra energy. Libras are very artistic and creative. They are also curators and collectors. They have a very keen eye. So Libra actually rules over collections and shopping for collections. So when the moon is in Libra, this is a fun little fact. If you do have a collection and you like to go out and try to find pieces for it, when the moon is in Libra, and especially when there's a full moon in Libra, we tend to have more luck at procuring the things we want for our collection, or just having the eye to spot them while we're out there in the world. So it's a good day to maybe go out with a couple friends and maybe hit up the thrift store or any store that you like to shop at, and just kind of having some fun and conversing with others. The sun is actually conjunct Chiron on this day as well. So the full moon is opposing Chiron and the sun. And this is all about finding more confidence and letting go of insecurities. There might be some of that to work through on Saturday. We could feel a little weird putting ourselves out there, making ourselves vulnerable, or just kind of showing who we are to the world. But this is a great day for working through that and allowing ourselves to release those insecurities. So that's what the moon is up to. It's going to be waxing up to the point of Saturday, and then it will start to gradually wane. So let's kind of go through the moon cycles real quick, the moon phases for this 2-week period. I haven't done this before, but I think this is going to be really helpful. So let's talk about it. So we're going to do a quick rundown from the 7th through the 20th, where the moon will be. And on the 7th, the moon is entering the waxing gibbous phase. It is building up to that beautiful full moon in Libra that we just talked about. And so it will be 3/4 full, and it will be growing in intensity. So the moon will be in Leo on Monday the 7th, and it will enter into Virgo on Tuesday the 8th, still in that waxing gibbous phase. And then on Thursday the 10th, it will enter into Libra and will officially be in the bright moon phase, which lasts for about 2.5, 3 days, with the full moon happening on Saturday, April 12th. And then the moon will start to wane after that full moon. So at 8:22 p.m. Eastern time, after that, it will begin to wane again. And we will be out of the bright moon period on Sunday the 13th, and then it will continue to wane the following week, and it will reach its last quarter phase on Sunday the 20th, when it is half full, halfway between the full and the new moon. So we will have it move through the signs of Scorpio on Sunday the 13th, and then it will enter Sagittarius on Tuesday the 15th, still in that waning gibbous phase. On Friday the 18th, it will move into Capricorn, and then on Sunday the 20th, it will enter Aquarius and be in that last quarter phase. So that's what we have for the moon during this time. Let's talk about number 6 on our list. Number 6 during this time is Uranus. So Uranus has two major transits happening during this period, the first of which is occurring on Tuesday, April 8th. So pretty early on in the period of time we're looking at. And we have Venus sextiling Uranus on this day. And Venus is retrograde. So this is the second time that this transit has happened in the last few months. And Venus sextile Uranus will color the whole day on Tuesday. This is really great for introducing some surprises, breaking up stagnancy in relationships specifically. So it's a good day to try something new with those you are close with. So maybe going to a new place with your partner or with a friend, or just experimenting with different artistic mediums and kind of being open to different visions in terms of what you're creating, what you're crafting. This is also a really great day for a makeover or for a style overhaul. If you've been thinking about like dyeing your hair a fun color or getting a new tattoo, like this is a good day to kind of get the ball rolling on that stuff. I think it's a day that introduces a little bit of changeability and kind of a reset of Venus, which can represent relationships, but also beauty, our appearance, and our artistic ideals and values. All right, then on April 20th, we have Uranus sextiling Venus again. So Venus is retrograde until April 12th, and we're going to talk about that more later in this episode. But then it retraces its steps and it reaches that same point where it's sextiling Uranus again on April 20th. So this is another day where everything I just kind of mentioned is very similar and very much kind of in line. So again, surprises in relationships, trying new things with those we care about, shaking up our artistic impressions and ideas, and also maybe changing up our appearance in some way. But this is a little bit fresher. It's easier to work with the energy on the 20th because Venus is no longer retrograde. There is this idea of maybe having to try to do things again on the 8th. Like you might find that you're having to kind of retrace your steps in some way. It's almost like you have a new idea for a story and you're like adding in a new chapter in your story, and you almost on the 8th, when Venus is retrograde still, you're like having to go back and reread what you wrote to make sure the details are correct. And then on the 20th, you're just like go, 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 making new strides and putting down new information into that same story. So that's just a little example for you. But again, Venus and Uranus are definitely in a dance during this month and the end of April, and it's a pleasant one. Sextile is a harmonious aspect. It's a 60-degree aspect. It means that the planets are getting along. They're working together in a way that feels conducive to change and to livening up dull and stagnant energy. All right, let's talk about number 5. We're in the top 5 now for this 2-week period. Let's go. Number 5, we have Neptune. So Neptune had a big week last time, and it moved into Aries recently, as we talked all about in last week's episode. This time, Neptune has two major transits that it's making, the first of which is happening on April 17th. And Neptune will move into conjunction with Mercury. Now, this has happened before. Again, we had Mercury and Venus both in retrograde in March and early April. And so these planets are retracing their steps, which means we're getting a lot of the same transits kind of over and over. We will be breaking out of that beginning next month, or later actually this month. But in general, we have been doing a lot of this kind of retreading our steps, maybe having to redo certain interactions, having to have the same conversations with certain people, or maybe having to kind of explore themes from the past that are coming back around. So on April 17th, we have Mercury and Neptune meeting in conjunction at 12:10 a.m. Eastern Time, and this is taking place at 0 degrees of Aries, so they are both pretty newly in Aries at this point. We're going to talk about Mercury later in this episode, and you'll hear all about its entrance into Aries, but this is happening pretty much right at the gateway to Aries, and this is going to color the whole day on Thursday, the 17th. Mercury conjunct Neptune is really wonderful for intuition, helping us to tap into that sixth sense and being able to kind of feel into the energy of situations a little bit better. It's really great for channeling wisdom and helping us to think more abstractly and imaginatively. And in general, just helping us to maybe be a little less logical and left brained and more open minded and loving and feeling our place in the world. Since this is an Aries, we could be feeling maybe more impulsive, like we want to get out into the world and just kind of live it and feel it and explore it. And now that Mercury is direct, there's just a lot of newness coming in. And even though we have experienced this transit recently, it feels different this time around. And there is this fresher energy associated with it. And maybe we're feeling things in a new way and being able to look at things in a different light. On April 19th, which is a Saturday, we have Mars trining Neptune. And this transit is one we feel for about a week. So it builds up for about 3 days before this. So we can start to feel it on Wednesday, the 16th. And we'll feel it until about the 23rd or so. So pretty much from the week of 16th through the 23rd, Mars trine Neptune is a thing, but it's definitely the strongest on Saturday the 19th. And this is also happening at the 0-degree mark. Mars is at 0 degrees of Leo and Neptune is at 0 degrees of Aries. So both of these are in fresh signs and they're both in fire signs. Again, when we have two planets in a trine, it means they are in signs of the same element. So we have fire signs here. Mars trine Neptune is a really wonderful transit for inspired action and moving in the direction of our goals, but doing so in a way that feels very fluid and natural. We're not necessarily going to be thinking about all the steps that we have to take to get there. We're just going to start moving. We might feel compelled to kind of go in a certain direction. We won't really know why we're doing it. We just feel like, oh, I'm really drawn to go down this path. Like, I just want to see where this leads. Or I'm really drawn to just randomly go to this place I never go to. Or to reach out to this person. Or to, maybe stay home when I was supposed to go out. Like, there's something that can be said, especially on Saturday, but really this whole week, about listening to your instincts, listening to your intuition and your gut, and letting that kind of rule your actions a little more this week. That can be a very positive thing. Sometimes that can lead to recklessness. That's not really so this week. It feels like we're, as long as we're not doing dangerous things, as long as we're just trusting our intuition to kind of lead us. And that's not to say like walk out in traffic, obviously we can still look both ways, but if you're feeling a pull to cross the street, then cross the street, just do it safely. You know what I mean? So it's not saying to just drop everything and run out into life and have no regard for consequences, but to follow those impressions and those instincts and find a way to get there. And this transit can be really wonderful for feeling really drawn to other people as well and being like in the right place at the right time. It's very fated, very lucky in a way, but it also helps us to be more in tune with our intuition and with other realms as well. We might be more sensitive to kind of like the spiritual realm and to those who have passed on. If that freaks you out, obviously you don't have to explore that, but that is something that you could kind of be more tapped into should you choose. So that is a big couple of Neptune transits, but still, Neptune's at number 5. It's kind of in the middle of the road this week. So let's move on to number 4. Coming in at number 4, we have the sun. So the sun is going to be changing signs during this period, and it will have one other major transit that's happening. But of course, we are going to include the sun in the full moon. Anytime we have a full moon, the sun is involved. It's opposing the moon. So Don't forget that that's also part of the sun's journey this time. So on April 19th, we have the sun moving into Taurus, and this happens at 3:55 p.m. Eastern Time on the 19th, which is a Saturday. And the sun will be in Taurus until May 20th when it moves into Gemini. And the sun in Taurus is very earthy, very grounded. Taurus is the sign of fixed earth. It is in the middle of a season. It is completely kind of encapsulated within springtime in the northern hemisphere and within autumn in the southern hemisphere. Basically, the fixed signs don't occur either directly after or directly before a season changes. So they're like nestled in the middle of the season and they have a very consistent and stable energy to them. So fixed earth is all about kind of grounding in, rooting in, and Taurus is ruled by Venus. So there is a Venusian quality to the Taurus season proper. And it feels as though we might be more drawn to using our senses to really dig into the world around us, to really appreciate and express gratitude for the beautiful things in our lives, and wanting to be surrounded by beauty and wanting to take it all in. So, Taurus season's a really good time to be out in nature and to appreciate beautiful flowers and trees and animals. It's a wonderful time to eat delicious food, to cook, and to use beautiful, lush, colorful ingredients, and to listen to your favorite music and to really take it in and be very present for each layer and each part of it. And to wear clothing that feels really nice, to kind of experience these beautiful fabrics, and to do tactile things with our hands, making beautiful objects by hand. Taurus is also the sign that rules over dance and singing. So it's a good time to make music, to move your body and dance, to sing, even if it's, not something that you're great at. It's okay. You don't have to judge yourself. You're just making sounds and expressing yourself, even if you're alone in your car or in your bedroom or whatever, it's all about expressing and really feeling that Taurian energy. So then on April 20th, which is a Sunday, the sun squares Mars, and we feel that all day on the 20th. And this can be a tense aspect. There is some stubbornness at play. There could be some frustrations, some impatience with other people, but really the biggest quality to it is stubbornness. People digging in their heels, not wanting to see eye to eye. There could be some frustrations. If you are in a disagreement with somebody on this day, it's best to just let it be. Let the situation breathe. The more you try to get them to see your point of view, probably the worse it's going to get. So it's better to give them space and maybe they'll find some compromise after that, or to just kind of let the situation go as much as you can, or just extricate yourself from it, really. And you could find that you're a little bit more tense, a little more easily annoyed by other people on Sunday. There's a lot kind of happening on Sunday. We have both the Pluto and Uranus transit that we talked about earlier. The moon's in its last quarter, which means it is squaring the sun. So a lot of squaring action going on, a lot of tension. Squares are kind of rife with friction, and it just feels as though there's kind of a confrontation that's arising, or this need to confront and to abrade against what's happening. So then, of course, we also had the full moon on April 12th as well. So the sun is involved in that, as I mentioned. All right, now let's get into our top 3 for this week. Coming in at number 3, we have Mars. So Mars has a pretty busy couple weeks. We talked about 2 of these transits already. We talked about its trine to Neptune and its square to the sun. We'll briefly go over those one more time as I kind of give you the rundown of Mars transits. First, we're going to start with the one happening on April 11th. This is a Friday, and Mars will be trining the north node of the moon at 10:26 a.m. Eastern Time. Now, remember what I said about Mars transits. They tend to last about a week, and this one would have started around Tuesday the 8th, and it will go until Tuesday the 15th, but it's really peaking on Friday the 11th. So, Mars trine the North Node. The North Node, as I have mentioned before, is not a planet. It's not a body in the sky. It's literally just a point on the moon's orbit, but it's a very influential point. It is basically how all eclipses are kind of centered around. So the nodes of the moon shift, they move backwards through the signs, mostly backwards, occasionally forward, but we won't get into that right now. But that is how the eclipses kind of are determined, and what sign that the north and south node are in will denote what signs the eclipses are going to take place in. So that's a little cheat sheet item for you. So Mars trine the north node is all about destiny, action. We've noticed that there's a couple Mars transits during this period that are all about inspired action, and this one's no different. It's all about taking risks, which will open new doors for you and will invite positive change into your life. But they require action. They aren't going to just fall into your lap. Things aren't just going to happen. You will have to take some action. You will have to trust your intuition and do your best to open that channel, to listen to what your heart is telling you, listen to what your spirit is kind of calling out for right now. And that will require you to spend some time kind of getting to know yourself if you're not in a place where you're like meditating or kind of giving yourself the time and space to have that self-care. Now, we all have weeks and months and even years that are very busy, or that make it a little harder to have those moments. So you just need to really trust that when you're feeling called to do something, there's a reason for it. There's a reason that will possibly open something up in your life. And we want to pay attention to the things that feel really purely motivated. They're not coming to you because of fear. They're not coming to you because of lack or of need or of like negative tingings of emotion. Like there's just a pure joy to do it. There's a pure desire and passion to do it. Those are the things we really want to give focus to during this 2-week period. So let's say, when you were a kid, you really loved pottery and making things out of clay, and you've been feeling like this urge to just go take a pottery class, or to get a pottery wheel, or even just to buy some cheap clay at the store and like sculpt something. Like, there could be an urge coming up like that to follow that and to see where it leads you. And, maybe someday it will lead to something cool like selling your own pottery and having your own studio, or maybe not. Maybe it's just a really fun hobby that will give you a lot of inspiration in your life and make you feel more at peace. It doesn't have to lead to something life-changing, but maybe it will. And the only way to know is to try. Maybe this 2-week period during this Mars North Node trine, you feel really compelled to check in with somebody you haven't talked to in a long time, and they happen to offer you a job, or maybe they happen to invite you out and you meet someone really cool who becomes one of your best friends. There's all these connections that can happen, but we just have to take action. Getting invited out with that person you haven't seen in a while, like you might not meet that friend who's at that location otherwise. You have to physically go to that place to have that happen. So it's all about taking action to open the door. The North Node governs our karma, our destiny. So it's all about acting in order to achieve our destiny. So on April 18th, Mars is going to move into Leo. This is such a big deal. Mars was in Leo back in November and December, and then it went retrograde in December. So it retrograded back into Cancer on January 6th, and it has been there since January 6th. Mars retrograde lasted for quite a while, long enough to kind of get it further back into the degrees of Cancer. And so Mars has been retracing its steps over the last couple months, and it is now entering Leo. So this is happening on Friday the 18th at 12:20 a.m. Eastern Time. It will move into the sign of Leo. Mars is happier in Leo than it is in Cancer because it is considered in its fall in the sign of Cancer. And if you have natal Mars in Cancer, like there's plenty of beautiful things about that placement. I don't want you to get down on yourself, but Mars just is not quite as strong in that placement. So that typically means that, Mars is very aggressive, it's impulsive, impatient, very fiery, very willing to like stand up for itself and kind of be a warrior in life. And Mars in Cancer is very much like peace and love and let's not fight, let's find compromise, which is great. It's a wonderful thing, but Mars doesn't like it. So Mars wants to be able to be full warrior mode. So when Mars is in Leo, Leo's a fire sign. Mars can operate a little bit easier there. Mars is going to be in Leo until June 17th, and it is going to be in its retrograde shadow still until May 2nd. So what that means is it's retracing the steps it took at the beginning of its retrograde still, and on May 2nd, it's going to reach beyond the point it was at when it went retrograde in December. So we'll be in new terrain, and it took a while. So there's been a lot of kind of slower movement and trying to get our energy back up to the place it was at before the retrograde happened. So Mars in Leo is bold, it's bright, it's all about being prideful in a way that is confident and not hopefully boastful. It's all about knowing your worth and honoring that. There's a competitive spirit to this and wanting to kind of show off, wanting to maybe show your abilities to others. It's a good time to be more self expressive if you're somebody who is trying to put yourself out there more in the world. With Mars and Leo, it might be more possible to do so. And we could feel maybe more energetic just because Mars is able to function a little bit better here. And again, as I mentioned, after May 2nd, we're going to feel like Mars is back into full force, but we're rebuilding. We're almost there. We're kind of gathering our energy for the full expression of Mars, but it is a lot better than it was. And it's been quite a doozy, honestly. I mean, Mars has been retrograde or was retrograde from December, and really it's been since November that we've felt the full power of Mars at our disposal. So there's a lot of rebuilding to do, but I think we're going to get there collectively. And Mars and Leo, I think we'll all feel the benefits of it, but people that like that the most are those who have significant placements in fire and two of the air signs. So if your Mars or your Sun is in Aries, Leo, Sagittarius, or in Gemini or Libra, you will really like this period. And again, Mars is going to be here in Leo until June. So we've got a couple months of this, and we can enjoy the prideful and lion-esque expression of Leo here. Then on April 19th, we have Mars trining Neptune, which is that week-long transit I talked to you about that had to do with inspired action and being open to your own intuition. And then on April 20th, we have that square of the Sun and Mars, which can cause a lot of stubbornness. We also discussed that earlier in the Sun section. So let's get into number 2 this week. Coming in at number 2, we have Venus. So Venus has quite an active 2 weeks. It's not the top planet of the week, but it is coming in at number 2. So on April 7th, we have that conjunction with Saturn that we already talked about. That is, of course, Venus is still retrograde, so we're going to experience this transit again in a couple weeks. And Venus conjunct Saturn is all about like feeling responsible for others' feelings or emotions, or feeling like there's a certain level of commitment that's kind of keeping us pulled to a certain person. On April 8th, we have Venus sextile Uranus, which is the one that allows us to shake up our relationships, bring in some fresh energy, getting rid of stagnancy. It can also bring inspiration in artistic endeavors and in our appearances, helping us to kind of revitalize those should we choose to. On April 12th, which is a Saturday, we have Venus retrograde ending. Venus retrograde comes to a close at 9:02 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday the 12th. And just as a reminder, it has been retrograde since March 1st, so about a month and a half. And the retrograde will end with Venus at 24 degrees of Pisces, so it's going to have to make its way back through the last degrees of Pisces, and then it will enter Aries next time. So we'll talk about that in the next episode. And Venus retrograde, I wonder if some of you notice some themes of that coming around. You might have had people from your past reaching out. You could have had more dreams about people that you haven't seen in a long time, past relationships. There could have been old creative projects that were coming back up on the back from the back burner to the front of your life. And Venus retrograde in general is one that gets a lot of traction. A lot of people talk about it online just because it's not common. It doesn't happen every single year. The last time it actually happened was in 2023 from July 22nd to September 4th. So we didn't have a Venus retrograde in 2024 at all. And it happens about every year and a half, like every 17 to 18 months we get a Venus retrograde. So the next one won't be happening until October 2026, which will be in the sign of Scorpio back into Libra, which should be a pretty intense Venus retrograde. But this particular one took place in the signs of Aries and Pisces, and now Venus will be retracing its steps and moving through those last degrees of Pisces, and will enter Aries later in the month, as I mentioned. So a lot of past relationship stuff will probably be coming away from the forefront of your life. I mean, not for everyone, of course, but it's less of a prevailing theme for everybody. And I think we'll enjoy this time with a lot of these personal planets coming out of retrograde. There's been a lot of that over the last few months, which can feel very draining. It can feel very disorienting. So at this point, after the 12th, we have Mars, Venus, and Mercury all out of retrograde, which is beautiful. That's going to be very fresh. And at this point, we have no planets in retrograde. That's not going to last, of course, but for now, we're going to enjoy it. We're going to take it as it comes and celebrate these small wins. So this retrograde-less time will last until May 4th when Pluto stations retrograde, which will break us out of that particular beautiful time. But for now, let's enjoy it. And then our last Venus transit of this period is on April 20th when it sextiles Uranus again. So that's the second of those two Venus-Uranus transits this month, which I talked a lot about at the beginning of the episode. All right, so let's get to our top planet. I bet you know what it is. I bet you figured it out. I believe in you, and let me know if you got it before. I mean, it's the only one I haven't really talked about, so you probably know. All right, the top planet, the top dog of April 7th through April 20th, the most active planetary body in the sky is, drumroll please, it's Mercury. Yes, Mercury has a very active 2 weeks, and we've talked about it a bit already just because of the other planets that it's been contacting, but let's run through it real quick. So, April 7th, Mercury retrograde is ending. So, Mercury retrograde ends, and then 5 days later, Venus retrograde ends. And both of these planets had a pretty similar retrograde journey because they both were in Aries when they stationed retrograde, both moved back into Pisces, and now are kind of retracing their steps out of Pisces. So, Mercury is going to station direct on April 7th, and that will be happening at 7:07 a.m. Eastern Time. Isn't that kind of magical? On the 7th, that's 7:07. I mean, other time zones clearly exist, so it's just really kind of magical just because we're talking about Eastern time zone. But anyway, Mercury will be at 26 degrees of Pisces, and it's not going to stay in Pisces for very long. It's going to be there for about a week and a half or so. But we are going to feel the relief pretty much right away. It will take a little time to fully be out of that Mercury retrograde shadow, but it doesn't last as long as the Venus shadow does. So Mercury is a much faster planet, which makes it zippier in general in terms of all of these little stages in its journey. So with that Mercury retrograde ending, we're definitely going to notice an increase in clarity. It will definitely help any communication issues or confusion. I've had some tech issues coming up as well, so maybe you'll notice some of those slowing down or stopping, hopefully. And we're going to have Mercury in its shadow only until April 26th. So, like I said, it's pretty fast. We'll be over that soon. And at that point, it's going to be really smooth sailing. We'll be able to use our brains to a much greater level and to be able to really retain information even better. I find that once Mercury's out of the shadow, like our ability to soak in knowledge is pronounced and we can communicate our thoughts and ideas a little bit better. So you'll definitely notice an increase in your ability to do that around the 7th when Mercury retrograde ends, but it's going to continue to get better and better until the 26th when it will just kind of be like, okay, we're at a good place. So that's great news. And then on April 10th, we have that Mercury conjunction to the North Node, which is wonderful for communication. And this is going to be happening at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, exactly at 9 o'clock. This conjunction takes place at 27 degrees of Pisces. So this is a beautiful transit for communicating with other people, kind of bonding over shared ideas and beliefs and seeing eye to eye with others. It's great for writing or for getting your thoughts and ideas out in different ways. You might feel really compelled to talk to others today or to get your ideas like jotted down, like in a note on your phone or in a notebook. It's a really good idea to find a way to make your thoughts last today. So making sure you're telling them to somebody who can help you remember or jotting them down, having a record of what you're thinking about and what ideas are coming in, because these could be very insightful. And your conversations could lead you to really cool places. You could leave feeling very inspired after you've talked to different people in your life. So this is really going to be prominent on Thursday, the 10th. It's a great aspect for just having the mind be activated and feeling really jazzed up and inspired by the people around us and by words and ideas and thoughts. On April 16th, Mercury re-enters Aries. So it doesn't take it long to get out of Pisces and back into Aries. And this is going to be occurring at 2:25 a.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday the 16th. And Mercury is really bold, impatient, impulsive in Aries. You might be more inclined to want to speak your mind, to not hesitate, to just put your thoughts and ideas out there and to not overthink things. Mercury in Aries is very much unfiltered, it's blunt, it's bold. There's very little overthinking that happens. It's much more like speak now, think later. Now, of course, that's not always a great thing. Like, we want to be sure we're not just blabbing on about every little thought that enters our brains. Like, other people deserve better than that. And also, we want to make sure we're not like saying things that are mean or hurtful to others, but just being a little bit more free with letting yourself be who you are and say the things that you want to say. And those of you who have your natal Mercury in the signs of Aries, Leo, Sagittarius, and also in Gemini and Aquarius will really like this time. This is going to be a very good period for you for communication and for learning new things. Your memory might be increased. You might be able to commit data and facts to memory easier during this time. So it's good for studying and exploring new subjects, and also good for writing if you're a person who likes to write as well. And Mercury will be here in Aries until May 10th. So that boost will be with you until May 10th. Now, for those who have their natal Mercury in Taurus, Virgo, Scorpio, and Pisces, this is a more neutral time. This is not going to be like the best, but it's not going to be the worst. You might just find that your mind power is pretty like even keeled. It's steady. You're not getting like the negative Mercury retrograde effect, but you're not like super powered either. And if your natal Mercury is in Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn, this could be a struggle, mostly because it's calling you to be a little more confrontational, a little more bold, and a little more impulsive than you usually want to be. Mercury in Cancer, these people are very polite, they're very sweet, they don't want to step on toes, they don't want to create conflict. Same with Mercury in Libra, they love to find common ground, they want to harmonize, they want to mediate. And people with Mercury in Capricorn tend to be more methodical, they like to plan things out. That impulsivity doesn't feel natural. So you might just have to step outside of your comfort zone more than you would like. It could feel a little disorienting just because you're being called to kind of use that mercurial energy in a way that's not very natural to you. Then on April 17th, we have Mercury conjunct Neptune, which we talked about earlier. That's a really wonderful transit for feeling inspired and having like these channeled ideas coming through. Really great for like artistry, poetry, anything like that. And then on April 20th, we have the sextile between Mercury and Pluto, which is wonderful for like looking below the surface and picking up on hidden information and kind of being a detective in your life. So, everybody, I hope that you enjoyed this episode of Planetary Potion. I'm going to be back on April 21st with your next episode that will be looking at the last week of April and beginning of May. And it's not quite as eventful either as we've been experiencing. It's actually less eventful even than this week. So it'll be kind of nice to have a breather. May's astrology looks much less intense than the last couple months have been. So we'll take it. I know I want to take it. Have a beautiful couple weeks, and you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Unclouded Eye. On Instagram, I post written forecasts with different transits that are happening, so you can get even more information on those transits and get a reminder as they're happening. And you can watch old episodes of Unclouded Eye podcast with Ty over on YouTube under the username Haunt Me Official, which is our production company. And there's I think like 39 episodes. So those are really fun if you want to deep dive into some weird subjects and get some cool astrology on various like historical figures' birth charts. Really fun deep dives over there. And Ty and I will definitely be back with more episodes later in the spring. And you can also book a reading on my website, uncloudedeye.net. I offer both tarot and astrology readings. There's a variety of options. So check it out and have a beautiful couple weeks. I'll talk with you soon.